Direct from Kansas City, it's Comic Book Late Night with Captain Logan. Featuring brand new comic book reviews, thoughts on comic news, obscure character of the week, and a little something from the comic vault. And now, here's Captain Logan.
Hello everyone, I'm Captain Logan and welcome once again to Comic Book Late Night. I'm ecstatic. I don't know where to begin. So much good news, so much great stuff going on. It's been 2 weeks since I've been on, and it feels like it's been 2 months. So much great stuff going on. First of all, with the channel, we just passed 2,000 subscribers. That's right, over 2,000 people watching us on Geekvolution. Thanks a lot to you folks. Tons of stuff's happened since we've been gone. We've got this new amazing logo for the channel, made by Daniel Gidlow, the amazing and talented Daniel Gidlow. Thanks a lot to him, and it's a really amazing logo. What else is going on? Well, Wonder Woman in the new TV show is apparently now wearing pants that don't look plastic. So, hey, that's really good news. DC is going to make a Wonder Woman movie, which is probably going to be way better than the TV show, would be my guess. So that's exciting, too. And there's going to be a Flash movie and a Justice League movie. And naturally, of course, me being off for a week, all this great stuff has to happen, and I have to play catch-up to talk about it. I've got 8 issues to talk about tonight. Tons and tons of stuff to do. I'm so excited. Everything's going right. Things are fantastic. I don't even have any jokes to tell. Like, I'm in a really great mood. There's nothing to make fun of. Nothing at all. In a minute. What is that?
I'm back.
Oh no. The Governator? Arnold Schwarzenegger is making an animated series called The Governator? Oh no. Oh no. Okay, well, no, it's okay. It's alright. It's alright. I'm not even gonna make fun of this. I'm not even gonna make fun of this because I was really ecstatic, I was really excited, and now I'm back to normal. I've gone from Cloud 9 to about Cloud 5. I'm good. Well, hey, I got a great show for you tonight. We're going to have a lot of fun. I've got 8 comics to review. What did I leave out? There was some other big piece of exciting information that might get me to at least to Cloud 6. Oh, yes! Comic Book Club is on tonight. Alex and Pete are going to talk to me, and they're going to go into the Comic Grill. Can't tell you how excited I am to have them on the program. That and more coming right up. But first, it's time for Rapid Fire Comic Book Reviews. Well, as I said, I've got 2 weeks worth of books to review today, and we're going to start with this week's books and then go on to books from last week. And what better place to start with than Marvel's uber-ultra-hyped Fear Itself #1. You know, it's mostly a taste issue, but I'm not immediately jazzed about Fear Itself. And it's not just because it's another inevitable giant Marvel crossover event. I appreciate comics providing commentary on current social issues and concerns, and the concept for Fear Itself is a sound one. Bring in the god of fear and then deal with our culture's immediate economic, political, and social fears. People are worried about instability and war and cultural degeneration, etc., etc. It's worth talking about. But whenever Marvel does something like this, it seems to be a little too on the nose for me. I prefer something more subtle. I mean, you've got symbolism and allegory with Odin and Thor at odds, and the gods turning their backs on the world, the heroes wanting to rebuild Asgard, no doubt to give people something to believe in. But the issue opens with riots in the streets, and there's a subplot about a family out of work forced to move from their home. By just coming right out and dealing with the problems in the here and now, rather than talking about them in a more creative way, I think you risk coming off as heavy-handed. Fear Itself isn't quite there yet, but Civil War certainly got there. At the same time, it's fractions, so naturally the writing is very strong and the stage is set for potential epic proportions. Not being real familiar or interested in Thor, I have to admit that the strongest scenes are between Thor and Odin. Thor, who chooses humanity over his people, and Odin, who shows no mercy for that. Now jumping over to this week's DC, let's take a look at Brightest Day #23. We're almost to the end of the series. I've been praising Jeff Johns a lot for being so unpredictable, but this was almost too much for me. I won't spoil who the big savior of the world finally turns out to be, but it really seemed kind of out of nowhere. Though in retrospect, maybe I should have expected this character considering he comes out of the Magic Forest. There's a lot of catching up this issue, finally bringing in pieces we haven't seen in a while like the Magic Forest, and finally explaining what the White Ring has in store for the characters it seems to have let die. As you can see from the cover, Martian Manhunter, Aquaman, and the rest aren't exactly dead. They've been brought back to fight the Dark Avatar as elementals in a turn that's very Captain Planet-esque. And I'm sorry, but I had to fight back the urge to laugh at the page where the White Ring starts calling the elementals air, water, fire, earth. I guess there's no heart because none of the heroes ran around with a pet monkey. I'm really reserving judgment until the final issue because I really thought Johns was doing a commentary on death and consequences in comics by killing some of the characters who were brought back to life, and now it seems maybe that's not what he had in mind at all, which is a little disappointing to me. Hopefully the finale is more satisfying and less easily wrapped up than Blackest Night was. And now on to something I almost didn't pick up. Here's Superman Batman Annual number 5. I haven't been reading the Reign of Doomsday stuff besides the Steel number 1, just because I didn't want to have to jump around to different books to read it. But this was Cyborg Superman versus Doomsday, and I just couldn't help it. There's not a lot to say here. It's a huge epic fight between Doomsday and Cyborg Superman, who still wants to die as he has for a long time and can't because he always regenerates uncontrollably, but says if he dies, it'll be at his own hand, not Doomsday's. He also decides that if he can kill Doomsday, it'll make him better than Superman, since Superman didn't survive his first fight with Doomsday. The subplot is Batman and Supergirl dealing with Justice League's satellite defenses, and Supergirl is apparently dying, but isn't sure why. And it has something to do with her being Dark Supergirl now, which is why she's in black, but apparently being Dark Supergirl doesn't actually make her evil. And I haven't been reading since Steel number 1 and haven't touched the Supergirl book, so I was kind of lost. I'm not sure what's going on with that. But I like the over-the-topness of this, as we get the silliest thing since a Kryptonite Doomsday in the Search for Kryptonite art from this same series. I'm going to go ahead and spoil this, so skip ahead about 20 seconds if you don't want to know. There's a cyborg Doomsday. I've never seen Miguel Sepulveda's artwork before, and it's wonderfully detailed and dynamic. I can't get enough of it. I don't know, maybe this was a guilty pleasure, but I just really kind of enjoyed it. Now on to the last DC book for this week, Batman Beyond number 4. Adam Beecham continues to deliver solid stories and is really giving the fans of the series what they've been asking for. Some face time for Terry's supporting cast, at the same time as mixing in fascinating Bruce Wayne Batman lore. It's come out in the public that Dick Grayson was Nightwing, and so Terry, wearing old man makeup and a Nightwing suit, is out fighting as Nightwing to try to help take the focus off of Dick. But for reasons that have yet to be revealed, Dick has gone on record and corroborated the whole thing, making Terry's efforts useless. This is really cool, and I'm really digging it, especially because Beecham is trying to fit it into Batman Inc. by having Dick explain that he worked as Nightwing as part of Batman Inc. Oh, and an interesting side note, if DC is going to really work to keep the series and mainline Batman continuity on the same page, then in the present, Dick has to eventually take up the Nightwing mantle again, because that's the suit he was wearing according to the Beyond mini when he gave up crime fighting. Meanwhile, Max does favors for Batman, being Terry's only friend who knows who he is, as established in the TV series, and there's a villain who's onto her affiliation with him. Her narration boxes are kind of overwritten and redundant, which is my only complaint about the writing this issue. But it's great setup, and this is already shaping up to be more intriguing than the previous arc. I'm not caring for the new art this issue. I do miss Benjamin's sketchy, stylized work. And now let's take a quick look at books that I picked up last week. Looking at Marvel, here's Avengers number 11. I really can't say enough good things about this issue. We've got this intense power struggle between the Avengers and the Hood. Each side has 2 of the Infinity Gems, and the Avengers are in an epic fight to get the Hoods away from him. It's funny because this feels kind of like a big event book to me, and it's just a regular title. That's probably because the Avengers have a big, diverse membership right now, so it's instantly like a crossover title, and it's the Infinity Gems, which of course started in a big event. Also, we've got the Watcher here, and we see these events through his eyes. Kind of funny that he's watching this and Fear itself, and I can't help but wonder how those two things could possibly be happening simultaneously. I think the first 2 issues in this arc took too long to really get the story off the ground, and we're really picking things up now, especially with the reveal on the final page. Something I've been expecting, and nevertheless I'm still pretty happy to see it happen, but I won't spoil it. And now jumping back over to DC, here is a book that I dropped quite a while back, but I took one look at this cover and had to pick it up. This is Gotham City Sirens number 21.
This one is worth it for the art alone. I love Gonaldo's depictions of Harley Quinn and the Joker, and the flashback panels of the good times and the bad times they had together are the highlight of the issue for me. Calloway is exploring the Siren's individual natures, as this book has done at least to a point from the beginning. The question has always been, can these three ladies change their stripes? Harley Quinn doesn't want to go down in history as the Joker's crazy girlfriend. She doesn't want insanity to define her. And it's hard to tell just how crazy or sane she is, because she's really conflicted about this. She really wants to kill the Joker and end it. And while she's recalling all the horrible things he's done, there's this twisted fondness for the past mixed in. Harley is often portrayed as kind of an airhead, but it's important to remember that she was a professional psychiatrist, so she can't be that airheaded. Calloway really treats her like the airheaded persona as a front, and in her head, in the narration boxes, she's intelligent sounding, articulate, at times poetic. At first I thought it was inconsistent, but it actually makes a lot of sense and gives her a more complicated characterization. The end of this was strangely sad for me. I really enjoyed it.
And now on to what continues to be one of the best things DC's got going on right now, Detective Comics number 875. Scott Snyder has turned Gotham City into a terrifying place. When I crack open an issue of Detective now, I can expect to feel some genuine fear and discomfort along with Dick Grayson or Jim Gordon or whomever the protagonist happens to be. I doubt he'll continue this trend, but I'd love it if Snyder would keep switching the perspective each arc. What he's doing is really Detective Comics. It's grounded in Gotham, but that seems to be his only criteria. That and that whoever his protagonist is must be solving a mystery. Gordon's son James is a really complex character. We get flashbacks to his childhood, presented in sickly reds and yellows, to showcase his apparent mental instability that we've been learning about in previous issues. An old case involving James opens back up again in the present, and Gordon finds that it's more complicated than he ever realized, though I won't give anything away. You know, the reason the Joker is a frightening character is because he's unpredictable. James is scary in a similar but different way. Gordon has always feared his son was capable of unspeakable atrocities, but there's never been any evidence that he's actually committed these crimes. There are signs in his behavior and how he looks at people, and Francavilla's art makes me afraid to be in the same room with him too. He always has the same calm look on his face with those tinted round glasses so you can never see his eyes. If you hang out with the Joker, you know there's a good chance he's going to kill you, or at the very least hurt you in some way. But hanging out with this kid is like groping around a dark room. You just don't know what's there. I hope after this arc that Snyder gives us more stories with Gordon. His take on him is overwhelmingly human and sad. And finally, last but not least, or possibly kind of least, Action Comics number 899.
Well, Moreno's art is at its best here, wonderfully thrilling and dynamic, but the story leaves a lot to be desired. This is the last issue before apparently a big showdown between Superman and Lex, which I think is neat because it's like Superman's battling Lex to take his book back. And all this explanation really feels like an afterthought. A lot of the stories in this arc have felt like interruptions, where Lex is looking for the Black Ring, but then he has to deal with something else, like Mastermind early on. Well, here we find that apparently a lot of that is all connected somehow, and that Mastermind has been deeply involved since the beginning, as well as Brainiac. But it all feels pretty shoehorned into me, and even if it was all planned from the start, the presentation here is kind of sloppy, regardless of the fun to be had seeing Lex and Brainiac go at it. They keep one-upping each other. Lex acts surprised to find out Brainiac has been controlling his robot Lois the whole time, then he reveals he knew the whole time, and things just escalate from there pretty ridiculously. Lex finally becomes super powerful by the end in a really contrived sort of way, and after 9 issues leading up to this, it just didn't come together for me. A lot of fun to look at, though.
That's it for new comic reviews, and before I go on to the news, I'd like to make a few announcements. Like I said, it's been a couple of weeks, and lots of stuff's going on. You might want to take notes. There's lots of fantastic things happening here at Geekvolution, and the first thing I wanted to mention is that we're doing a contest here on Comic Book Late Night, a brand new contest in honor of DC bringing back the letters pages in their comic books. I thought it'd be fun if we could try to get one or several of our subscribers to manage to get letters published in letters pages in comic books. And it doesn't have to be DC. If you get a letter published in Marvel or Dark Horse or Image or any other comic book company, be it in indie company or not, the first person who manages to get a letter published and sends it to me, I will read your letter on the show. show, and I will also send you something very special from the Comic Book Vault. It's a very special surprise. Not going to tell you what yet, but anyway, so everybody work on that. See if you can get a letter published in a comic book, and I think it'd be really fun if we could get one of our viewers to do that. The other thing I wanted to bring up is Geekvolution now has a P.O. box. If you'd like to send me something to review, either in any comic that you're working on, or a comic that you like a new comic that I haven't been taking a look at, but you want me to look at, feel free to send it to our P.O. box. Also, if there's like a movie you'd like Vince and I to review on Geeks Not Nerds or anything like that, feel free to send us a package. And the P.O. box is P.O. Box 14183, Lenexa, Kansas 66285, and address it to either Captain Logan or Geekvolution. And now, on to the news. Okay, so first off, as everybody knows by now, DC and Warner Brothers announced their new superhero movie strategy last week, and Batman's going to get rebooted, and we're going to have Wonder Woman, we're going to have Flash, and we're going to have Justice League, and all those things are going to not be tied into Justice League at all. I'm not going to talk about this too much tonight because Vince and I are talking about it on Geeks Not Nerds this week more in depth and talking about how we feel about it. But I will just say that it looked at first like they were going to follow the Marvel Avengers strategy, and that all these DC movies that are coming out were going to lead up to Justice League, just like they're doing with Avengers, and they were just going to kind of follow suit. And I really appreciate the fact that they're trying something different, and that they're going to attempt multiple continuities at once, which is something that is really kind of unheard of, especially with DC, to the point where famously when Smallville was pitched, it was supposed to be, instead of a young Superman show, a young Batman show, and they were going to do the early days of Bruce Wayne in a television show. And then when Batman Begins happened, they decided they couldn't do that because they didn't want to tell the same story at once. They didn't want to do Batman twice at the same time, which is completely understandable. But with that precedent, it seemed for a long time that DC and Warner's would be rarely amicable to doing the same character live action in two different places, even if it's not the same story. Very often they don't like that. And now, I mean, we're going to have a Wonder Woman TV show, assuming it gets picked up, at the same time as we're probably going to get a new Wonder Woman movie, and they're going to have they're going to do a Justice League movie with some of the same characters, I'm sure, that they're going to be doing in other places, but they're going to be two different properties. That's really neat, and it's going to be cool to see what happens with it. The only thing I'm concerned about is that there may be too many movies coming out at once, and like I said, Vince and I will be talking about that on Geeks Not Nerds. As I said in the opening monologue, Arnold Schwarzenegger has a new animated series coming out called The Governor, and not only is it going to be an animated series, but according to an interview that I saw with him, he's also going to have a comic book and possibly a movie and all kinds of crazy stuff. And here's what I think about this. Arnold, maybe 8 years ago, people would have eaten this up, but while you're leaving office, you suddenly cash in on the Governor thing. This TV show looks like those like mid to late 80s cartoons that were based on action movies. It looks like RoboCop the series or something like that, and I think it looks super hokey. And it's funny because I mean, the animation is cool looking, don't get me wrong, but there's no concept here. I mean, like, he's calling himself the Governor simply because that's what everybody was calling him when he got in office. The premise of the show is he leaves office and becomes a superhero, and he's still calling himself the Governor, regardless of the fact that he's not the governor. Like, wouldn't it have been at least maybe potentially interesting if he was the governor of California and a superhero simultaneously, and you could have done something really over the top and fun with it? Maybe. I don't know. I mean, Stan Lee is apparently producing this, and all the creative properties Stan Lee's been doing the last several years have not been especially successful. You know, the Condor and Stripperella and all the various little projects he's done here and there. They've been kind of low key and not especially successful. And Arnold seems to think that this is going to be huge, and I don't see it. I don't think people are going to really buy into this. So Jeff Johns is going to be doing a new Aquaman monthly here pretty soon, and that's really exciting news. This new news came out last week, so, thanks a lot for ruining pieces of Brightest Day, considering that a lot of us thought that maybe Aquaman would be dead, and now apparently he's not, because Jeff Johns, well, of course, we know now, of course, that he's not with the new issue of Brightest Day, but I'm just saying. Anyway, but it is pretty cool that Aquaman is finally going to get his due again, and he's going to be doing a monthly, and Jeff Johns, what a busy guy. Like, I can't believe that he's doing Flashpoint, and he's doing Aquaman, but, I guess maybe he just wants to stay this busy, and with Brightest Day ending, he's like, oh, I need another book. So, anyway, so about 4 minutes of Green Lantern footage was released this week at WonderCon, and I took a look at it, and I gotta tell you, it looks really quite fantastic. And I'm not a big Green Lantern fan, as many of you know. I don't review Green Lantern on the show, but the movie actually looks really good, and it looks a lot better than the initial trailers. A lot of people were worried that it was going to be too comedic, and the initial trailers and the teasers were really making it look like that, and that's too bad because it looks really epic now. It's a lot of people are saying that it looks a lot like Star Wars, and I think it does in a good way. It looks like it's trying to really capture the awe and the epicness that something like Star Wars had back in the late 70s. And the only complaint, if I would have one, not that I want to review, footage or a trailer or anything like that, but I do hope that we're not seeing the final effects, because I had to keep reminding myself for the first couple minutes that it wasn't a CGI movie. I mean, that it wasn't a computer-generated animated film, because it kept feeling like that. And then every now and again, I would be reminded, oh yeah, it's supposed to be live action, because here are people with their live action faces, and it's a difficult thing to do, because you've got to have a lot of CGI in a movie like this, but at the same time, you want it to be integrated so that it doesn't take you out. So we'll see how it goes, but it looks really epic, and I don't know, maybe it has the potential to maybe to change my mind a little bit about Green Lantern. Maybe I'm still not as excited about this as I am about Captain America, but I'm more interested than I was before. So anyway, take a look at that footage. And there's tons more other stuff going on right now I'm not going to get into. Lois Lane has been cast, Amy Adams of Julie and Julia, Doubt and Enchanted, and lots of other things going on. For more news, check out Duke and Manos' new show on Duke Loop's 1993's channel. And now, a trivia question. In the early 70s, Daredevil was hanging out and had a relationship with Black Widow, and he moved out of Hell's Kitchen and went to what city? So the question is, briefly, Daredevil was living in what city in the comics in the early 70s? And last week's question was, what series did Mephisto first appear in? Mephisto in Marvel Comics, what series did he first appear in? And the correct answer to that was Silver Surfer, and that answer was given to us first by Red and Green 1996. And now it's time for another amazing and astounding edition of Know Your Batmobiles. Here is a Batmobile. And what year is it from? 1975, 1979, or 1985? And I'll be back at the end of the show to let you know what year this Batmobile is from. Tonight, my very special guests are Alex and Pete from Comic Book Club. Unfortunately, Justin wasn't able to make it, but I am talking to Alex and Pete. And for those of you who don't know, Comic Book Club is a comedy, improv, comic book review show based out of New York City. They do a live show every week, and they also put up comic book reviews on YouTube, and they're very popular. They've been around for a long time. They've talked to numerous influential people in the comic book industry. Tonight they're going to go through the comic book grill, and they're also going to talk about their experiences from C2E2. Now, without further ado, here is Comic Book Club. Let's take a listen. Okay, I'm here with Alex and Pete of Comic Book Club.
Hi.
Hello.
How are you?
I am really excited to have you guys on. I've been watching Comic Club for a couple years now, and you guys are pretty well known in the comic reviewing community, and it's really cool to have you on the show.
Hey, we're excited to be here.
Yeah,
and,
thanks so much.
We've heard of you too.
Oh, cool. That's exciting. You've heard of me. Awesome. You've heard of me because I've emailed you.
Yes. Okay, that's what I remember now. Well, seriously, thank you for having us on. We're excited to be here.
Yeah, man. Thanks for watching.
Oh, sure, absolutely. So we're going to do a little segment called the Comic Grill, where I'm going to ask you guys 5 interesting and intriguing questions based on your interests and your career. But before that happens, I'd like you guys to talk for just a second about how you guys met and how you got the comic club shows going, because that's something I don't know, and also talk a little bit about C2E2.
Yeah, no problem. So we got together. I used to be the artistic director of the People's Improv Theater, which we're actually sitting in the basement of right now, getting ready to do our show. And I knew Pete because through improv stuff, I think, right?
Yeah.
And Justin, who is the third person in our trio, I knew through sketch stuff. And I had the idea in the back of my head of something about like comic book and talk show, putting that together somehow, but I was really embarrassed to let anybody know that I read comic books until one day I saw Pete walk in with a bag from Midtown Comics, and I said, Pete, you read comics. Come here, talk to me.
Yeah.
So I talked to him about it, and a week later, Justin walked in also with a Midtown Comics bag, and I was like, Justin, you and Pete don't know each other. The three of us should talk. And so we sat down and hashed out the idea and figured out how we're going to do the show, and 3 weeks later, we're doing the live show on stage. We decided to just jump into it, and here we are, 4 years later, much, much poorer.
Yeah, it was funny because,
but more well known.
Yeah.
It was funny to me because it was like I was busted reading comics. Like Alex was in the office and I was in the lobby, and he was like, "Do you read comic books?" And I was like, Yeah, I still read comic books. And that was also before the boom a little bit, and where comics became a little cooler to read. So, it was one of those things where he kind of got the band together, and then, we just started rolling.
Totally. And you also asked about C2E2, which was...
Yeah, how was that?
Oh, awesome. Chicago is a great town, and C2E2 is a great con. Really, we work for Newsrama usually at these cons. We've done that at San Diego a couple of times, New York Comic Con pretty much every year, and C2E2 for the past 2 years. And it's just fun. You had a great experience there, right, Pete?
Yeah, I mean, what's nice is I get to walk around and go to Artist Alley and talk to people, and it is just it's a great convention. It's big enough, and it's also small enough where it's a lot of different interaction with a lot of the artists and the writers, and it's just a lot of fun. And people stop me and say, "Hey, love the show," and Justin sucks, and I always get a kick out of that. So it's always great when that happens.
Yeah. They don't tell me they love the show, but they definitely tell me that Justin sucks.
Yeah, and it's also nice that after doing this a couple times, we know the writers and we know the artists a little bit, so it just makes the interviews that much more fun.
Well, are you guys ready for the ominous comic grill?
This is pretty nerve-wracking.
Yeah.
I usually like things that are grilled, but I'm nervous about this one.
Yeah, well, this one won't.
They're marinated.
This one won't be like ribs or anything like that.
Oh man, I love ribs.
Yeah, we got to get some. We're busy actually. We're gonna go get some ribs.
You guys should come out to Kansas City and have some ribs.
Yeah, all right, let's do it.
Have you guys actually ever been to any of our cons out here?
No, I haven't.
We just had our big one this last weekend, Planet Comic Con, and
nice.
You guys should come. It's cool.
Yeah, how'd it go?
It was really good. I got to meet Gail Simone.
Oh,
nice.
yeah.
Nice.
Which
we
was
were
awesome.
Actually, just talking before this, how I would really like Gail Simone to be my friend.
I met Gail Simone. I met Yannick Parquet.
Oh, cool.
And he was really cool, and lots of other interesting people. Anyway, here comes the Comic Grill.
All right, hit it.
Question number 1. Both of you, what is the best ongoing indie series you're currently reading?
Lock and Key. That's an easy one for me, I would say. Huge fan of Lock and Key. We've chatted with Joe Hill and Gabriel Rodriguez before a bunch of times. They're the nicest guys in the industry, but also the most incredibly creative. The series is different from issue to issue every single time, but stylistically holds together. It's scary at one moment, it's funny at another, really incredibly emotional, probably the best ride in comics right now. I can't wait to pick up every issue.
Yeah, I definitely agree with Lock and Key. I'd also like to say Proof I really enjoy. as well as Chew. It's not as indie anymore because it became famous, but man, that's a lot of fun.
Yeah, but you were in another ground floor.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Before it's cool.
Yeah. Both those are really fun.
Question number 2. How do you each feel about digital comics? Do you read them? Do you like reading on a screen instead of a single issue? And how do you feel about how they're changing the industry?
I personally hate digital comics, just because I don't have a device. I don't have enough money to get an iPad or something that makes reading comics digitally enjoyable. You know, email me a comic, be like, hey, check it out, and I'm more than happy to do that. But it's so awkward reading it online right now for me. And I'm also a big collector, so I'd hate for the stuff that I've spent a lot of money and time trying to save and preserve to become obsolete.
And for those of you, since you can't actually see what we look like, just so you know, Pete is 85 years old. I totally disagree. I mean, I understand what Pete's saying, but this is definitely something that you and I have completely disagreed with. I think digital comics are great. I feel like they're just the devices and what digital comics should be are starting to catch up to each other. There's things like Box 13 that our friends David Gallagher and Steve Ellis do for Red 5 Comics and for Comixology that are excellent because they really use the iPhone and the iPad as a digital device and use it in the right way. Pete, you were saying there were a couple of things that you were looking at C2E2 that really use digital devices the right way, weren't you? Or
yeah, I was. Azure does a really good job of doing that. But yeah, I mean, I'm not saying that. I mean, some people are really embracing the form and doing great things with it. They're very creative, which is awesome. I just right now don't have. Oh, that's the bat phone. Don't have a way of doing that isn't annoying. So there are amazing things online. Yeah. And I also get a little nervous that when things go online, people aren't getting paid what they should, because a lot of things online are free, and you'd like to see people who put time and energy get the money they deserve.
End of the day, though, I personally don't think that comic book companies should be scared of digital. They should be embracing it. They should be putting their catalogs online. You know, I should be able to go online and if you tell me, hey, you can read 5 issues of Captain America, I'm far less likely to subscribe to a digital service than, hey, you can read any issue of Captain America ever.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been saying for a long time we need a comics version of Netflix.
Yes.
Yeah, something that, isn't going to make people lose money. You know, I'd hate for it to be like, oh, it's only 99 cents, you can read everything.
Yeah, if it was a comics version of Netflix, though, you'd probably have a mouse sitting on your digital desktop and be like, oh, I gotta read that. And then months later, it's still sitting there. Oh.
But I just mean something subscription-based as opposed to having to spend $2.99 to download the same thing that you could go out and pick up in paper.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
When you say it, it sounds perfect.
Well, let's move on to question number 3, shall we?
All right.
A lot of comics fans, especially with DC and Marvel, have been complaining lately about oversaturation. Who would you each say is the most overexposed character in comics right now?
Oh, boy. Dupe for Marvel and Matt Lad for DC.
Oh, man.
Too much.
Yeah. I mean, it's, the obvious choices are Wolverine and Spider-Man. And then, Batman over on DC is all over the place.
I think Green Lantern, if anything, in DC. They're probably going to have to cut down the amount of titles that he has at some point, and I feel like it's going to make the whole thing more focused. That's not going to happen for, a year or 2 years, something like that.
Yeah,
the movie's coming out.
Far enough away from the movie.
Yeah, because I was really enjoying it when it was one focused title, and I'm not saying that the other titles are bad, but...
No, Core is not bad. I've read a few issues.
No, it's good. It's really solid. Tony Bedard is a great author. It's just a little too much, and it's a little too all over the place.
Some of the brightest day stuff is a little all over the place, where you really start to get into a storyline, and then they just switch storylines on you, and it's a little frustrating.
Yeah, that said, I mean, with any character, you mentioned Spider-Man and Wolverine. We have Astonishing Spider-Man and Wolverine sitting right next to us right now. That title is awesome.
Yeah,
and,
it is.
They're totally overexposed, but that's a great title, so who cares?
Yeah, it's one of those things where I'm not going to complain about it just because when it's done well, it's worth picking up. So if I have to choose between 8 different Spider-Man titles, I have no problem doing that.
Number 4, you guys obviously have special guests from the comics industry on your live show every week. What are some of your favorite guests that you've had on?
I'm gonna have to say Kevin Conroy.
Oh, you stole it.
Yeah.
I knew you were going to say that.
Voice of Batman was amazing. I mean, I literally laughed and cried in one episode. It was unbelievable. Other than that,
someone taped that, and I got to see some of it, and it was pretty cool.
Yeah. When we had, Greg Pak is just a fan favorite, and Fred Van Lente, those guys are just hysterical, absolutely hysterical. And, the writing, you can tell that they're having fun, and that just comes through kind of in their personality and who they are. I'm trying to think of who else is like a good sport that's fun to have on the show.
I'll say that the first time I can remember actually being really nervous to have a guest on the show that paid off in what I thought was a really good show was Chris Claremont.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
He's obviously a very, very divisive figure, I think, in the industry at this point, but every single book that I loved growing up was written by Chris Claremont or created by Chris Claremont. So I definitely felt very nervous going into the show because I didn't know, meeting somebody that wrote so many of those stories, what he would be like. And he talked very intelligently, and he was very funny, and we had a great time, and we chatted for him for a couple of hours after the show, and it was really, really nice. And we've seen him several times since, and he's always been very pleasant and intelligent.
Yes, and he was also nice enough. He said he would send us signed copies of stuff, and he actually did it, which was amazing. I would have to say the person I got to interview at a convention that I was most excited about was Garth Ennis, and people told me that he was very, quick with answers and doesn't really. But I ended up talking to him for like 30 minutes, and it was amazing.
Yeah, like 2 of those minutes Garth Ennis talked for. It was pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Sounds like Todd McFarlane and Stan Lee.
Yes.
Okay, guys, final question. With your knowledge of the current climate of the industry, would you guys advise writers and artists aspiring to break into comics? Because we have a lot of younger viewers who send me a lot of messages all the time about how they want to get into comics. Would you advise them to try to do it the traditional way, where they send their work to the bigger companies, or would you advise them to self-publish and go the indie route?
Can we say get a real job?
No, we get asked that a lot as well. And from what we've seen, the easiest way, if there is such a thing, the easiest way is to kind of get noticed a little bit for what you're doing on your own. So at least you have a little momentum when you are pitching your stuff to the bigger companies.
Yeah, I mean, it's the tried and true answer, but it's tried and true because it's absolutely 100% true. You ask anybody from any of the big companies, you're not going to miraculously have something where you're like, hey, I want to write Spider-Man. They're like, so weird. Dan Slott stopped writing it today.
Right, of course.
It's just not going to happen. Instead, write your own stories and write the stories you want to write the way you want to write them, and then see what happens. The worst case scenario is that you've written a bunch of comic books that you like about stories that you care about, and you never get to write Spider-Man, but you still have these stories that you thought were very important to you, and that's not a downside at all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The other thing I will say, actually, an interesting story, or at least interesting little note I heard, we interviewed Tom Zahler, who writes Love and Capes at C2E2, and I asked him, I said, hey, it seems like you've really built momentum and really gained a bit of a fan base. And he said something to the effect, well, you stick around long enough and it kind of just happens. And I think, he's selling himself short because he writes a good, fun comic book. But in a certain sense, that's true. If you do continue to work at it and work hard and put yourself out there, go to conventions, network to people, and more than anything, write a good product, write a good comic book that really is true to yourself and has your own point of view, you're going to get a fan base for it.
And I think that's as true now as it ever has been.
Exactly.
Because there's so many, especially with the internet, there's so many people in every kind of entertainment medium that a lot of people just get bogged down and get unsure of themselves and leave real fast, and nothing happens overnight.
Yeah.
Also, just the old-fashioned internships. I know Marvel always hires from within a lot. So.
Yeah, that's more for staff positions, I think, though, just to clarify about that, because Marvel actually has a bit of an unofficial rule, as far as I understand. I heard about this recently, that if you want to write for Marvel, you can't work for Marvel because they don't want an appearance of favoritism or anything like that. So people like Jim McCann, for example, who used to work for Marvel, left Marvel so that they could actually write for Marvel. And, as a side effect, he also wrote Return of the Dapper Men for Archaea, which is an awesome book. So,
really great looking book.
Yeah. So he's doing both paths. Jim McCann, you guys.
Be Jim McCann. That's the advice.
We have T-shirts, actually. If you want to buy it, check it out at bejimmccann.com.
Well, guys, thanks a whole lot for being on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
Really appreciate it. And I have a couple of really quick side questions, just really fast things. First of all, Pete, are you reading Punisher Max? I know you're a Punisher fan.
Oh, yeah.
And I was just wondering if you how you were liking it, because I think it's fantastic, and I don't like the Punisher.
It's phenomenal, and I actually talked to Garth Ennis about it, and he was very impressed with Jason Aaron.
Was he?
And the things that he's doing. Just such an amazing job. Because for a while there, all I had was Punisher Max, because Remender was butchering the Punisher on the main line, literally, making a joke out of it with the front bun shirt.
That was great. You're wrong.
No, it wasn't great.
No, he's not. And I also joke with Remender about it, and, he's an amazing writer. I'm not going to take anything away from him. It was just tough for me to see my favorite character butchered by a...
Finally brought to being a reasonable character.
Well, I mean, come on. You can have a low level, you have a main character take out another main character. Wolverine's son is not, it doesn't, the Punisher's been around too long for that.
Again, you can't see this, but Pete is actually crying right now.
I sidetracked the question. I'm sorry.
Alex, a really quick question for you. You were in an episode of a College Humor sketch called Not That Batman.
Yes.
And I was just curious what those bats were made of.
Oh boy. Well, first of all, it's from my sketch comedy group Elephant Larry that we put on College Humor, so you can check more of that at elephantlarry.com. Plug.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah, no. But the bat is I'm trying to remember what the film bat is. The stage, when we do that sketch on stage, the bat is actually a chocolate cherry bread filled with red cabbage and barbecue sauce, I think. But for film, for some reason, the guy who was putting it together was like, oh, it's got to be grosser. So he made this thing out of clams and cabbage, and I think it also was barbecue sauce, and there was like some dirt and leaves. It was disgusting. It was the grossest, most foul smelling thing also that you could ever taste. And not only that, the guy who plays Not That Batman in the sketch, Jeff, he had to eat that over and over, and it was a freezing cold night in the middle of the night, so he wasn't wearing gloves, had this glop freezing to his hands.
Oh, no.
Anyway, great sketch, really enjoyable.
Well, once again, thanks a lot for being on the show, guys.
Oh, thanks for having us, and we'll see you for those ribs.
Yeah, absolutely. And everybody, be sure if you've never seen Comic Book Club before, be sure to check them out. If you have watched them, continue watching them. And they're on YouTube, Comic Book Club. And now back to my show.
All right, man.
Today's Obscure Character of the Week is brought to you by the Before and After category on Wheel of Fortune. Have you ever heard of Arm Fall Off Boy? First appearing in Secret Origins number 46 in 1989, Arm Fall Off Boy has one of the most self-explanatory names of any superhero. His arms come off, and he hits people with them. In fact, he can do this with all of his limbs. When first introduced, he was one of the first heroes to apply to the Legion and the first reject. How's that for a feather in your cap? His origin remains largely a mystery, not so much that it's mysterious as that nobody bothered to tell us what it is. Matter Eater Lad claims Arm Fall Off Boy got his powers because he carelessly held on to an anti-gravity element, but it's hard to tell whether or not he was joking. Special thanks to Now Know This for this week's Obscure Character of the Week. And if you have an idea for Obscure Character of the Week, or some fan art you'd like to show off, something you want me to review on the show, a question you'd like me to answer, or anything like that, feel free to send me a personal message over Geekvolution, and I'd love to hear from you. And now it's time to find out what's in the ever-fantabulous Comic Vault. Today in the Comic Vault, we're going to take a look at a classic issue of Superman. This is Superman number 282. The top right-hand corner of this comic on the cover says still only 20 cents. Even back in 1974, DC was drawing the line at 20 cents. Sometimes with an older comic, you have to leave your modern sensibilities behind. But the lead story for this issue has to be silly in any time. Lex Luthor blasts Superman with an invisible beam that makes him younger. Lex says just past a teenager, to the age he was when he first moved to Metropolis. Conveniently, even though Lex doesn't know Clark and Superman are the same person, his memories revert back to the moment he asked Perry White for a job, because he barges into Perry's office and demands work. Perry humors him, thinking he's trying to reenact the moment for some reason, maybe missing his old job because now he's a TV newscaster for WGBS. This is the part I love. This is classic mad scientist Lex. The reason he made Superman younger is because it makes him a brash and impulsive youth. So Lex might stand a chance against him because he's a mature adult, essentially fighting Superboy. The obvious question, of course, is if you can control what age you make him, why not just turn him into a baby? I mean, he doesn't seem to have any code of honor about this if he's willing to turn Superman into a kid, beat him, and call that a victory. Unless he doesn't want to turn him so young he'll forget Lex, humoring the story for a moment enough to pretend that any BS science could possibly account for the idea that de-aging someone would also rewind their memories. At any rate, this is the Lex who wants revenge on Superman for making him lose his hair, which I always thought was a really stupid reason to hate someone. And so he wants to, get this, make Superman so weak that he can laser off his scalp and replace his missing hair with Superman's hair. Yeah. And he seems to have a gadget for every occasion. He can make Superman feel immense pain with a gadget that doesn't require kryptonite, which kind of begs the question as to why he also needs him brash and impulsive. Even being an 18-year-old Superman, Lex still gets him to show up by threatening to blow up Metropolis, which I'm pretty sure would have worked on regular-age Superman. And his brashness is mostly waiting until the last second to save someone from a plummet to the ground, which of course he does, and being really rude to people, saying things like, "Go suck a lemon, Luthor." It's a hilariously fun read, but it doesn't make a lot of sense, and it doesn't do much to make Superman look like a real intelligent hero. Like in a lot of stories, he saves the day because he's the one with the superpowers. In fact, Lex just messes up his own plan, because the device he uses to cause Superman pain also makes him so heavy that he and Luthor start to sink toward the center of the Earth, and if he doesn't do what Superman says, he'll die. The story acts as if this is the first time Luthor has donned his classic green and purple outfit, though I doubt if this is its first appearance. And once again, if you'd like to add something to the Comic Vault, feel free to send me a package through our P.O. Box. And now it's time to find out what is the year of tonight's Batmobile. And the Batmobile was in fact from 1975. This one appears on the cover art of a Batman storybook record. Well, hey, that's all the time we have for you tonight. I'd like to thank my special guests, Alex and Pete from Comic Book Club, for being on the show and for giving such a fun and insightful interview. Thank you very much for watching. Be sure to support your local comic book store, and if you're ever in the Kansas City area, be sure to check out our official sponsor, Pop Culture Comics in Overland Park, Kansas. It's my favorite place to get comic books. And remember, don't read comics and drive, because you just don't want that on your obituary. Thanks a lot for watching. I'm Captain Logan. See you next time.